Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Celtic View podcast, where once again we have a lot to get into on this week's edition because it was another successful weekend for the Celtic teams, and we have a big game coming up this weekend as well to look forward to. As well as that, we have an exclusive interview with none other than Patrick Roberts, a man that thrilled so many Celtic fans during his time at the football club, and we go back through all of his memories from his 2.5 years here at Celtic. First of all, as ever, joined by our Celtic View editor, Paul Cuddihy. Paul, how was your weekend?
It was very good, yeah. Sunday in particular.
Yeah, it was a
Very sweet.
special Sunday for Celtic. 3 games, 3 victories. We'll get into some of that. And we'll have a big preview to what's coming up this weekend as well. Why don't we start off briefly on just kind of looking back at the game on the weekend on Sunday for the first team, which was a 2-0 win away to Ross County. Probably not a game that we're going to look back on at the end of the season as one that stands out as a real highlight, but to be honest, at this stage of the season, it's the 3 points that matter, isn't it?
I think it's the same every season. There's games that stand out for either brilliant performances or last gasp winners. Last season, Ross County was one of those games. I think that was last Sunday's game was just a kind of run of the mill. Wasn't a great game, but we were. If you look at the stats, we dominated possession, chances. We hit the bar, we hit the post. Their keeper had a number of great saves. So there was no way we didn't deserve to win, and it was just good, get the job done. First game back after the international break, important just to keep the winning run going, coming into a big game this weekend.
Do you know, I felt really sorry for him. The game on Sunday was Greg Taylor. Obviously went off with a knock, but he's probably never going to strike a ball any better with his right foot, and to see it carrying off the post, and then a few minutes later he had another chance which the keeper saved. I just felt so sorry for him.
Yeah, it was a stunning strike actually, and the keeper who had a decent game for Ross County, there was nothing he could have done about that. So he was really unlucky, and obviously his replacement steps up with an absolute belter of a goal.
He did indeed. What were your main takeaways from the game? Obviously it was a first start for Iwata, who I thought was really impressive in midfield. I thought all came on and made a real difference up top as well. What would stand out for you?
Yeah, I think that turn just about the halfway line from Joe Hart's clearance for O was a bit special, and it was really unlucky that he didn't.
You say clearance, Joe Hart would say pass.
Pass, sorry, pass. But yeah, I thought that he was really unlucky not to score. I thought Alistair Johnson had a great game down the right as well. His pace, his strength, his delivery into the box was really great. And obviously we got the break with the penalty just before the interval. I always think it's funny. I always think managers have to be consistent, because obviously a lot of Celtic fans found Malky Mackay's comments after the game here where they get a really soft penalty, and effectively was saying, it's just one of these things even themselves out over the course of the season, and he wasn't quite saying that. Although the most ridiculous thing I think in the post-match was one of the tabloid newspapers up here, I think their heading was Ross County star's dad in VAR blast after Celtic penalty, and it was basically, I think, Jordan White, the Ross County player, I think his dad went onto social media to criticise the decision, and that became a story in the paper, and you think, that's how desperate. Really, it's fair enough if an ex-player or somebody, but you think, obviously he's going to say that anyway, but I thought it was a penalty. So
I did think it was a penalty, and do you know what, Paul? So often in here we've talked about VAR and we've complained about it, so it's given us a right decision, so let's give it a little bit of credit.
I think the biggest criticism since its introduction, and again you saw it on Sunday, is the lack of communication.
Nothing to say.
Yeah, it was right at the end of the first half. At first I think people are thinking that was the end of the first half. The two managers, I think, had headed down the tunnel, because they did, so there was no communication to tell the fans that there was actually going to be a VAR check for a penalty. So I think that really needs to improve in terms of letting people know. Fans are either going to be happy or unhappy with the decision. That's never going to change. But at least, give them the information to let them know what's been checked and when.
100%, because that was the same in the game at home against Hibs, the 3-1 victory, where that was not communicated to the stadium. So we spoke about that before. That experience for fans needs to get better. Bernabei got his first goal for the club, and it was an absolutely stunning strike at the end. Just on Bernabei, he seems, I think we were chatting about it in the office this week, about he seems to be improving going forward. You're seeing improvements in his game. I think he's definitely come on leaps and bounds from the player they signed, and hopefully that's something now for him. Getting his first goal will do him the world of good.
Yeah, well, I thought the most telling comment came when you did the interview with the manager after the game, and he said he's still a young player and he's still learning our system and how the manager wants his fullbacks to play. Because, you know, you can get a really, even, you know, you can bring in a really experienced fullback to Celtic and it would still take them time to adjust, because there's a very specific way that we play and the fullbacks are absolutely crucial to that. But yeah, I mean, I thought even before he scored the goal, it was an absolute cracker of a goal. The keeper didn't have a chance. I thought he was really going forward, looking really, really dangerous. So, I mean, that would have done, you know, you could see how pleased he was as well. So it's always great when you see a player scoring their first goal for Celtic as well.
Yeah, definitely. Which now, getting those 3 points, Paul, it leads in very nicely to a game on Saturday at Celtic Park, 12:30 kick-off in the derby. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of that game, I thought it'd be an opportunity to look back on some of our memories of derby matches. Do you remember your first derby you went to?
I do, unfortunately.
Okay.
Because we lost. I was about 17 or 18 because my I wasn't allowed to go. My dad wouldn't take me to a Celtic Rangers game when I was much younger. It was only once I was old enough to start going with my pals, and so we actually went. It was a game at Ibrox, and we lost 1-0. I think it was Bobby Williamson actually scored the only goal of the game. So that was my first memory of that, which you know, it's never great to lose those games. I remember the centenary season games, the Paul McStay in particular, obviously scored in the game at Ibrox when we won 2-1. He scored an absolute cracker from the edge of the box to open the score, and Andy Walker get the winner. But the earlier game at New Year, when we won 2-0, and you know, people mostly remember goals and spectacular moments, and I always think it's one of the greatest passes that you've ever seen, where Paul McStay just kind of pivots in the middle of the park and sends this amazing ball through the inside right channel for the overlapping Chris Morris. He plays it into the middle and Frank McAvenny scores. And it was just, that crystallises, particularly for people who didn't see Paul McStay play, weren't lucky enough to see him play live. He was the maestro, and that was a perfect moment in a big game. So I remember that one. That was a really good game as well.
Yeah, my first game that I attended was 2006, start of 2006-07 season. We won 2-0, where Thomas Gravison scored and then someone else scored the second goal in that game as well. I'll maybe leave it to you to think about that one. But yeah, that was my first experience of it. It was a sunny day, just had an amazing atmosphere. And then that season we went on to lift the league. But I think I was trying to think what my first memory was of a game that I maybe watched prior to that. And so many of them kind of get morphed into one, because all I can really remember is watching a game and Larsson scoring. So then you try and like look back to see, okay, what game might that have been? And then you look and you see it's pretty much it could have been any game. So I can't actually really remember what my first real standout memory was. Even the season before that, 05-06, the game where Sean Mallory scored in the League Cup to win. It was an absolute schemer. I can remember that. I wasn't at the game, but I can remember watching that game and just like the whole aftermath of it and seeing that goal and repeat. But yeah, that was my first game, was that game in 2006. Have you got like a favourite goal from a game that you've attended?
It's got to be Larsson, 6-2, the chip. Yeah. I mean, that goal, even now, whenever you watch it, it just takes my breath away. I mean, it's, again, Henrik was just a genius, but that goal, you know, combining with Chris Sutton, but the amount of work he still had to do, and then just to have this, you know, in that heat in the moment, in that fixture, to have the presence of mind and just that split second to be able to chip the ball over the goalkeeper where most other strikers would have tried to hammer it past them. Maybe they'll have scored. It's almost like time stands still as that ball was just going over Stefan Klos and into the net, and it's I mean, I think any goal that you score in a derby game's always great because you know what it means, but that goal always sticks out in my mind.
Maybe have you figured out who the second goal scorer was in that game?
But Kenny Miller. I mean, see, to be fair, Kenny Miller, you know, he obviously spent much longer time at Rangers than he did at Celtic. But I would say, you know, you only have to look at Kenny Miller's celebration that day to tell you that he loves scoring, and he gave everything when he was at Celtic. You know, I don't think there's any Celtic fan that would ever question his commitment to Celtic when he was there. And I think whether he played for Hibs, whether he played for us, Wolves, Rangers or Scotland, I think he was just one of those players that just gave everything to whoever he was playing for.
Yeah, he certainly got a right good hold of the badge and when he scored in that game.
Absolutely, yeah. The jersey looked a wee bit too big for him.
Yeah. Favourite goal for myself. There's been some good ones, hasn't there, over recent years. I think for me it would probably be Nakamura's goal in the game in 2008. The significance of that game, for one, was it being a night game as well, but just the technique in that. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a goal quite like it ever since or before that, where you maybe see some players score goals like that to some level where they kind of strike across it and it curls, but almost to the point where you think they probably actually didn't mean it. It's just the way that the ball's hit off their foot. But you know, he's meant every single part of that.
Listen, everybody's seen the footage of some of the adverts that Nakamura did in Japan, where he would be, you know, there'd be cars passing by and he'd be playing the ball through the window. I mean, what he could do with the ball was remarkable. Yeah, I mean, so many goals Naka scored that were great, but yeah, that one was a great goal. And I also think as well, sometimes when you're playing nighttime games against Rangers, I think there's something special about a derby game. Obviously the lunchtime game, and if we win at the weekend it's brilliant, but you know, when we played the nighttime game, there's just something really special about that.
100%. There's something just about the atmosphere, and particularly then when you win those games, they just stand out that little bit more. The last game, the 3-0 one midweek, we obviously go into a 3-0 lead at half time, and the atmosphere was incredible that night, even before the game, and there was just 60,000 Celtic fans there. But in that game back in 2008, because of what it meant in the race for the title, winning the game with the Premier's last kick of the ball, or last head of the ball from Hesselink, to then go on to beat Rangers again 3-2 and to go on and lift the title, it's just that holds so many good memories. There's just something so special about it, as you say. If you could go back to a derby match, say one you've attended and one that you wish you'd attended, what would you pick?
Well, there's two games that immediately spring to mind. There was the game, I think, in January 1966, when we were on our way to winning the first title under Jock Stein, where we won 5-1 and Stevie Chalmers scored a hat-trick. I think we might have been losing 1-0 at half-time. That would have been great to see. And then the 1969 Scottish Cup final, when we won 4-0. And again, I think going into that game, it was, I'm not sure we were obviously the best team at the time, but Rangers were very close to us, and I think there was a lot of talk about this was their chance to kind of get a trophy. And I remember being lucky enough to speak to Jim Craig about it, and I think Celtic knew that they were the best team, but they also knew with these derby games you had to win the right to play your football. And I think he said they went out in the first half and they just made sure. I mean, we blew them away. So I'd love to have been at Hampden to see that game. You know, some memorable goals there.
And what about one that you could revisit again, one that you already lived?
I think it would have to be the 6-2 in Martin's first season. I think there was, you know, the result, performance, those first 12 minutes when we were 3-0 up, and that at that moment And again, I think you have to remember that was a really good Rangers team that we were playing, and they fought their way back into the game. But there was just that sense that something had changed when Martin came to Celtic, and that crystallised it that day. And obviously that Henrik goal, but the whole performance, that whole day in the sunshine at Celtic Park, amazing.
Yeah, I'm trying to think for myself. Some honourable mentions for games I've not been to. I think 7-1 was obviously one that stands out. I thought you might have said that.
Yeah, I just immediately thought of those two in the 60s.
Yeah. That would have been amazing to have been at, to see that bit of history. Another one that stands out for me, it's an odd one, but it's because I can't remember why I couldn't make the game, and it was the one where Mark Wilson scored.
It was the Scottish Cup Cup. Yeah.
I honestly can't remember why I couldn't make that game, but for some reason I couldn't, and I watched the game at home. I don't know if it was something to do with tickets for it or something, because it was Scottish Cup, and I just remember watching it at home, and obviously Everton kicked off in that game as well. I just remember watching it and being like, oh, I wish I was there. So that's always one I wish I went to. But for me, it would have to be 6-2, really, because it's a game that everybody talks about. You're speaking about it already. If I speak to my dad, that's one he'd speak about. I've heard so many people's stories about that game that I would have just loved to have been there and to have witnessed it. I hear stories about it all the time. There's guys that sit near us in 104 from Greenock, and they're always late to the game. And my dad always tells me a story. We'll be like 3-0 up after 15 minutes.
That was about 12 minutes, yeah.
12 minutes. They came in, half cut, sat down, and they're like, oh, by the way, what's the score? So my dad's like, oh, 3-0. They're like, nah. Tell us seriously. I tell you, it's 3-0.
That's why you should always make sure you're there for the start and don't leave before the end.
Don't leave before the end.
Because it's funny, you could actually, I mean, it's probably worth a podcast in itself. I mean, everybody would have games, because immediately, as I say, those first two sprung to mind, the 7-1 game, but then you could go even further back to, the game where Jimmy Quinn scored the hat-trick in the 1904 Scottish Cup final. But then I started thinking, why don't you go back to the very beginning, the very first game Celtic played, and be one of those 2,000 people that saw Celtic's very first game, which is just amazing when we beat Rangers 5-2. To be at that game, I suppose that's the ultimate in terms of history.
Yeah. For games that I have been to, the 2-1 game would have been one that we were mentioning in 2008. The last minute goal to win it. Even the game after that, then 3-2, because that 2-1 game was obviously so important because it gave us a opportunity to then have a chance of winning the title. But in the game 3-2, Scott McDonald scores a couple, Barry Robson scores from a penalty as well. That was the one that's like, right, okay, we've won a game, we now need to back that up and do it again to then go above Rangers in the title race, and then we go in and lift the league as well. But in the same time, had a couple in recent years, 5-1s, 5-0 to win the title. I mean, to win 5-0 at Celtic Park against your rivals to win the league. However, I think you know what I'm probably going to say with this. That game still, I just get that little bit of annoyance with it, because I just think, what could have been?
I know.
See, you saw Liverpool winning 7-0 against Man U. My first thought watching that was, why was that not us?
Because we scored our fifth goal after 53 minutes.
Yeah, had one cleared off the line just after it. I just thought we took our foot off the pedal a little bit.
It's difficult. I mean, I think in those games, the intensity that we played that day, and then you get to that certain stage, and it's probably hard to maintain that, because the players are just giving it absolutely everything. And I always feel that chance that we scored, that was blocked just after we went 5-0 up. I always feel if that one again, we would have got more, because then I think they're just giving us a wee kick. But it's hard, when you, as you say, when you win 5-0 to win the league, it's hard to kind of grumble too much, to be fair.
Oh, I know. You're really, really nitpicking there, aren't you? Why don't we look ahead to this one then on Saturday? So we're going into this one, was it 8 games left in the season now? 9 points clear in the league. How big a game is this on Saturday?
It's always, every derby game, I think, is just massive, and mean, I think everybody knows that anyway, but I remember earlier in the season when we were talking after the Champions League draw was made, and, you know, was that idea, you know, the silly conversations people have, would you rather, you know, if you had the choice, because I think we're playing Rangers just after Real Madrid or before, if you had to choose just one game to win, which would you choose? And there was a debate over, well, how many times you get the chance to beat Real Madrid. So some people were plumping for that. But actually, I remember my feeling at the Derby game, my feeling at the Real Madrid game is completely different. There's the excitement, there's the thrill, that still wanting Celtic to win, but the kind of nervousness and the kind of that, you know, non-feeling at the back of your mind when you're playing a Derby game is just, you can't bear the thought of losing it.
Yeah.
So there's more significance of that because it has an impact on the city, on people's daily lives of family and friends and work. Well, obviously not in here, work colleagues, but elsewhere. So I think it's a massive game. I think it's almost like a standalone. I don't think it matters what happens before, but I think this is a big game in terms of, you know, obviously if we win this game, that we go 12 points clear. So I think it might dictate how Rangers play the game, because they know for them it's probably a win or nothing, because if they were to get a draw 9 points behind with 7 games to go, it makes it very difficult. I think the problem for every team when they play Celtic is, you know, if you go toe to toe with Celtic, if we're at it, then we'll win, you know, and I think it's the same when we saw that when we played Real Madrid. You go toe to toe with them and you do really well. There's just a quality there that they showed. So I think it'll be a really interesting game. You're hoping all our players, you know, obviously Greg Taylor recovers from the weekend. You're hoping that the extra rest that Aaron Moy and Rail Hatate and Lila Bada had, that they're all back in, because when you look at our squad, if we're at full strength, it's a pretty formidable squad.
And in recent history, in the derby matches, particularly at Celtic Park, we have been just on absolute fire. 4-0 earlier this season. We had the 3-0 game last campaign. The one in between that was a 1-each draw, where pretty much the title was wrapped up for us at that point. Even more recently, we had the game at Hampden where we won 2-1 as well. So recent history is kind of in our favour. And as you mentioned, if we turn up in these games, then in any game really, then more likely we're going to win. But you get a sense in this squad that there's a real excitement when they go into it, that they don't get overawed at all by the potential of it being a derby and what happens if you lose a game. They actually get excited about it and relish it and take it on, and actually the performance level steps up.
Well, I think the manager, ever since he's come in, whether it's a game against Rangers or whether it's, you know, a big European game or a cup final, he's acknowledged that it's different. The build-up is different. He's not tried to say, well, this is just a normal week. The preparations and the training will be the same, because that's how it works. But he wants the players to embrace the fact that this is a big occasion, that you're at a big club like Celtic because you want to play in these games. So I think that helps, because then the players know, you know, and they're not trying to underplay it. They know how big the game is. I think the dynamic of the derby games changed in the last couple of years, obviously, with the fact that effectively you're only playing in front of your home support. Now that's brilliant for us at a game like this. There is something, I think everybody would acknowledge, that you lose something in terms of the derby when, you know, for example, if we were playing at Ibrox, traditionally you would have the whole of the Brimlin Road, so 8,000 Celtic fans there. You know, the best place to be if you win, terrible if you lose, and vice versa here. So I think it changes it. So it makes it even more difficult, I think, for the away team, because you're literally it's the team, the backroom staff, and that's it. There's no other fans there, so that makes it difficult. I mean, I think it's still a difficult game. I think that, you know, probably the one team that you have to be wary of, because they have got players that can hurt you, and you know, they've been on a decent run of form themselves. So I think it's a massive game. There's so much at stake. You know, we're so close to retaining the title, but you know, this is a big game on that road. So I feel fine just now, but by Friday or Saturday the nerves will be jangling.
Yeah, they always will. When you get into here, and it's always strange, I feel like, in our point of view, in terms of what we do and work, because we'll get into the office, and so you get to the stadium early, but then you're just kind of in the office environment. And I always feel, for me personally, I don't know what it's like for you, but the nerves don't really start to hit me because you get to the stadium, this is just a normal office, nothing's really changed, and it is not until you go back out into the concourses and back to get your seat, about half an hour to go, and the stadium's getting full, and then you start to go, this is hitting me now.
But it used to be where our office is in the Lisbon Lions, underneath the Lisbon Lions stand, and obviously that would be traditionally where the Rangers fans would go. So prior to the current arrangement, you would start to see the opposition fans, you could start to hear them, you would start to feel the sense, even in the office, of there's an atmosphere building. Obviously it's all Celtic fans, but we've seen in recent games it's an unbelievable atmosphere, and I think for the players, when they first experience it, I think it's something that again, it's probably a reminder of why they're here. So you're thinking of players maybe like somebody like Alistair Johnston, who's already played in 2 derby games, but this is his first experience of one at Celtic Park. Yeah, and the fact is, he comes in and does so well at Ibrox, and then does so well in the cup final as well. He'll be relishing that. But I think it's always a great experience for the new players to get a sense of what this is all about.
Yeah, I'm putting my neck out and I'm saying, I've got a feeling O's going to come off the bench and score and do some mad celebration or something like that, and just go on and bully the Rangers defenders because he looked brilliant against Ross County. I've just got this feeling. I don't know if it's a want for him to do it, but
it's one of that way you go into you want it to be another 5-0, 6-0, but you would take fans of both clubs would be the same. You would take the worst game in the world if you won 1-0 with a fluky goal in the last minute, because it's all about the result on the day. So you just as you say, there's so much at stake, and which is the case in every single game where there is a derby game. So you just hope on the day that we are smiling again.
I guess it's always that argument, like, would you rather have like a really, really convincing 4 or 5-0, or in a way is it actually better if you win 1-0 with a last minute dodgy penalty?
No, you would rather, because it's so nerve wracking throughout the whole game. And I think even in those games that we've spoken about where we've had convincing wins, I'm sure people don't really relax until it gets into the last 10 minutes, because I think the nature of the fixture and the nature of the team that are playing, and it'll be the same, if another Rangers are beating us, you just know that the game's never over, because the fans of the opposition and the team, the fans demand that the team keep going, and so you know that the opposition will keep going. They'll just not give up. So you have to, whether you're 1-0 ahead or 2 or 3 or 4, you never settle until it's more or less over, because it's the one team where you never 100, you're never sure until it's absolutely sure that you put the game to bed. So I would much rather my nerves were slightly settled, but you can't predict in terms of what's going to happen.
Well, I'm going to try and predict, and I think it's 2-0 and O's going to come off the bench and score at the end as well. That's what I'm going for. Have you got any thoughts?
I'm going to go for 2-0 actually.
2-0.
Kyogo is going to score again, and yeah, I'll give you your own goal. That'd be nice to see, actually.
Nice. Well, let's actually look back on again in some of the past derby games, some of the big derby victories in recent times with Patrick Roberts, who sat down. He's obviously now at Sunderland. He's enjoying life there at the moment. He's back playing well in form and scoring goals. But yeah, he sat down for a good half an hour to look back in his Celtic journey, which I think we all remember so fondly. What better way to kickstart our derby weekend by hearing from Patrick Roberts as he looks back in his own memories of the derby as well, with a couple of 5-1 victories in there, which I think everybody remembers so fondly. So yeah, enjoy this interview with Patrick Roberts, and when we come back, we will be looking back in the B team's very own derby victory and looking ahead to their fixtures and looking back on the women's. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Celtic View podcast, and we've got another really exciting guest for you this time around. It's a man that signed for Celtic in February 2016 and had initially an 18-month loan spell where he absolutely excelled in that right-hand flank and was part of a team that helped us go invincible before re-signing for the club, and another loan spell. And I think over that 2.5 years, the Celtic fans really took this man to their hearts. It is none other than Patrick Roberts. Patrick, how are we?
I'm very good, thank you. Very good. How are you?
It's great to hear from you. Hopefully, it's a chance to go back over some very happy memories for you. But you're at Sunderland now, Patrick. How you enjoying things there?
Yeah, I'm loving it. It's a big club in itself down here. Like obviously you guys up there, and there's a lot of expectation and a lot of ambition to obviously go up and go through the leagues. And someone I enjoy, someone I've enjoyed since I was a kid. So just to be a part of something here is it's been great, and I'm just enjoying my time at the minute.
It seems to have been a really good fit for you because I think you joined towards the tail end of last season when the club won promotion to League One. Has it just been a really good fit, the club, for you?
Yeah, I think the turnaround, obviously, when I came and to now, we've kind of gone on a little journey. I've only been here a year, but getting promoted and then doing well in the championship at the minute, and competing at that level again. I think most of the fans here wanted is it's been great, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And the more football I get, the more you do enjoy it as a player anyway. So it's just going from strength to strength, and hopefully more to come.
Superb, that's great. Well, we're here, Patrick, to talk all things Celtic. And before we get into the start of your career, I'm wondering, I take it, is it still a club that you're following? Do you still watch games? Have you been keeping up to date with this current crop of players?
Yeah, from time to time I watch the odd game, and they're always on TV. So it was like when I was there, you always get the Sunday. So if I'm off on a Sunday, they'll be on at 12 o'clock or something, or during the week when they was obviously in Europe and stuff. And yeah, I try and keep up. It's a different group nowadays than when I was there. There's not many. I don't think that's still there when I was there. So it's all different now. But you keep an eye on it, and always look out for the games, and especially when the big ones come around, you keep an eye and watch it. So yeah, I always try and keep my best to look out for them.
Well, let's go back to when you signed from Celtic. Initially, it was a 18-month loan deal from Manchester City. I can't believe it's 7 years, Patrick, since you signed. Take us back to that moment and what it was like, what your first memories are of coming into the club.
Oh God, it was, yeah, 7 years seems surreal. Really, I can't imagine it's been that long. But yeah, like from the first day I got there, it was a big break for me at the time. Similar to when I came here, as a transition period. So we obviously Ronny Deila was the manager, and a lot of things going around at the time, and I kind of came in not really having any worries or any pressure. And you get used to that after a while, and you see how big the club is and how everyone wants to do so well and how everyone wants to achieve so much, and kind of just fitted straight into that. And the first few games I wasn't really playing, and then I got into it towards the back end, and really enjoy it, really took to it, and I think the fans did as well. And kind of knew I was there for 18 months, so it was easier for me to kind of get used to that first 6 months. And then when obviously Brendan Rodgers came in, really attack it in pre-season, which was important for me, which is the first pre-season I've had now, was the last one I had was at Celtic. So the first proper kind of running in the off season, and we just went from there. And yeah, it was, at the time it was massive, and I was really obviously looking forward to it, and I just wanted to do as well as I could. And I didn't think I would to go on to achieve what we did. And I'm very proud of that, and it's probably one of the things I always look back into, and one of the best things I did for my career was go there, and I really, really enjoyed it.
So take us into when you were signing for the club. You were at Manchester City, having started off at Fulham, so clearly an opportunity there to try and get some real minutes under your belt. Was it always Celtic, or were there other clubs interested at that time? And when Celtic then did come in, was it a bit of a no-brainer?
I spoke to Ronnie at the time, and and he really wanted me, and coming in, just wanted to kind of let me come and express myself at such a young age. I think I was only 18, 19, so to come into a big club like that, to try and do my best and just enjoy it, and make the fans enjoy it as well. And didn't have anything else in my mind but to go and win some games. And before you know it, 7 years down the line, you still look back and you still think it's one of your best times in your career, and that's what clubs like Celtic do for you. And it was a pleasure to play for them. And like I said, I've always looked back and thought it was one of the best decisions I've done. And you can look now and be happy you've done it, and you can see where they are now as a club. And still a huge club, and just like I said, just to be a part of it is special enough, and to do what we did was even even more special and something that you can hold on to for the rest of your life.
How did you find that transition when you first came in? Because as you mentioned, it took a little bit of time before you really started to find your feet and get into goal scoring form. So was there a period of change for you in coming into this new environment? And tell us a little bit about the group that you came into as well.
Yeah, I think the competition in the group was huge as a whole. It was my first proper, I know I was at Fulham, but it was the first proper season where as a professional, like a proper professional league and professional starting. And, they gave me that platform. All I could do was do my best. And, you come to a team and a club and there's already so many good players, homegrown players, and it's sometimes hard to get in. So I had to wait my chance, but I can't always back my ability even when I was younger. And I thought if I get a chance, I've got to take it. And, after the first few games, like you settle in more and you start to enjoy it and start to get the feel of the club and what it's like to play for a big club. And, I just went from there. But transition for me was just to go and not have any pressure and not have any fears of what was going to happen and just to make the most of it as best I could. And I thought I did that.
Your first big moment in a Celtic shirt, I think you scored a double and a 3-1 win against Hearts at Celtic Park. That really seemed to be the moment where you were starting to establish yourself and Celtic fans were starting to really see how promising a talent you were. Take us back to that day and getting your first goals and how big a moment that was for you.
Oh, it was huge. It wasn't just my first goal for Celtic, it was my first goal in professional football. So, to join the two was amazing. And my dad was there, and I think after the match, you score one goal. It's great to score two on that day. I thought, wow. Like I said, my dad was there, and he couldn't be more happier for me, and he was over the moon. And just see the reaction afterwards, and we won that game as well, and it was two crucial goals. So it just set me on my way, I think, and I went on to score a few more that season. And it was a starting point that I really needed to get off my back, and yeah, to see what it meant to obviously other people as well, and to the fans that took to me so well, and I'm always grateful for that. And yeah, I've always thought of it as a starting point in my career, and I'm forever grateful to have it obviously at Celtic Park itself and for obviously Celtic.
Yeah, as you said, you went on a bit of a goal scoring run at the end of that 2015-16 season. I think you scored against Hearts again at Tynecastle. You always seem to score against them. Scored a couple at home against Aberdeen. One of those goals in particular was an absolute screamer. What do you remember about those?
I remember because I was with Graham Shinney at Derby not so long ago, a couple of years ago, and I remember that goal sticks in my mind. He mentioned it to me as well because I ran past him and stuck into the top corner. So yeah, that's what I enjoyed doing, that kind of stuff. And you get the feel of that confidence, and obviously from the Hearts game you bring it on more, and at some point you feel like you can score in every match. And at the time that's what I felt like. So it was every time I got on that pitch I just wanted to do something, and obviously they gave me the freedom to do that and gave me the license to do that. And that's what these clubs do. They give you that platform to go and enjoy and play and score goals. And I had that at Celtic, and I never looked back since after that. And yeah, their moments were special, very special.
So the end of that season, we lift the league title. I think you scored again in the day that we lifted the league in the 7-0 win against Motherwell. Ronny Deila leaves the club during that summer and Brendan Rodgers comes in. Take us back to that summer, and for yourself, having come off that good period of scoring goals, I'm sure you were full of confidence. What was that pre-season like, and what was changing under Brendan that then made us go on to have such a successful period?
I think just the manner he was. A lot of players would say the same. When he came in, you could see a sense of like change and uplift and a different kind of tempo and throughout the club and throughout the players. And yeah, working with firsthand, you could see that. I don't think we had a bad day throughout my time being with him there in training or games, and he had that kind of expectation for us as players, but at the same breath, he kind of knew how to manage them and to get the best out of them. And first fight, I think he might have said a few times, because if I wasn't on an 18-month contract, it might have been different. If I was in there at the end of the season, it would have probably been different, because I know it was there 18 months. I had that time to make a first impression, and that's important for any player in a club. Even loan or signed, they need that first impression with the manager. And he came in and did what I did from the previous season, and he took to it, and he was a breath of fresh air for me in my career, and obviously for Celtic at the time as well. And with the players around me and the players in the club, we went on to do something really really special, and that all came, I think, from the manager and his his mentality throughout coming in through the door, and he set that into us as players, and we just went on, kicked on, and believed we could achieve anything.
The manager made quite a lot of changes to the squad, and that summer bringing in the likes of Moussa Dembele, someone who you knew as well from Fulham. What players and what was training like during that time under Brendan, and what kind of players stood out for you, both in terms of ability and also in terms of the characters off the park as well? Can I imagine it was a lively dressing room?
Yeah, it was fun. It was, like I said, it was my first real test, and you obviously Bruni and Kieran and Lee Griffiths and the likes and Mika Lustig, and they're all big names and big players, and you want to kind of make a good first impression with them. And training was always intense. Used to get kicked a lot. See, Izagiri was there, FA was there, and it was quite intense. And he kind of brought that into the club and made every training session kind of count. And he always used to say to me, "Train how you play, and if you're not training well during the week, you're going to be, not great on the." In different words, you're not going to be great on the weekend. So he was instilled that into every player, no matter who they were, just to train as you play. And he brought that in from the first minute, and it was good. The training was good, and then when we got to games, we knew what we was doing. And there's a lot of players that stood out. It was a long time ago now. Moose, obviously, I knew coming in, so I knew what he was about. Got Tom Rogic. He was there a long time, and then when Brendan came in, really stepped up. And I thought he was an unbelievable player for the size he was, and you could see it back end of when I was there. He had unbelievable feet. So all these different types of players, and you just got to play with them and enjoy them. And obviously Scotty came in, Sinclair, still keep in touch with Scotty, and we brought players in that could complement the whole team, and I thought that was the right recruitment. And it just helps everyone in the squad get the better out of each other, especially with a big squad. Training's always high because there's a lot of games, a lot of players, and it keeps the competition high, like I said. So everyone was at their game, and it was just kind of everyone feeding off each other. And you come to match day, and you'd be hitting 4 or 5, and it was quite normal. And you'd be quite disappointed if you didn't, get more. And that's the mentality he brought, and it's the players kind of brought into that and made it a successful season.
Yeah, we remember all the success in that season, but things didn't get off to the best of starts, did they? What do you remember of that opening game against Lincoln Red Imps?
The thing is, I don't think I played in that game. I think I remember going to it. I thought, oh, okay, and then went to the pitch, and it was obviously the pitch wasn't great. Surroundings weren't great, and we lost 1-0. I think everyone thought, bloody hell, what's going to happen? And then we kind of got back, and then we played them at home. I think I started that game. I scored in that game, and when we was at Celtic Park, it was different. You could see a kind of different mentality. I just think because it was the first game, it was just one of them. Not many managers have a good first game. It's quite odd. So we didn't think too much into it. But yeah, it was a shock to the system. But when we got back to Parkhead, it was it's a much different story, and everyone calmed down a bit. And I think after that we went, we smashed it really. But yeah, it's always nervy the first few weeks, but we got out of the way, so it was good.
Yeah, I mean, we were fine after that, and that 3-0 win that you scored in helped us on our way to then progress into the Champions League, where we met Barcelona and Borussia Mönchengladbach and the team that was your parent club at the time, Manchester City. Talk to us about your memories of playing in the Champions League at Celtic, and also playing against your parent club. I know you eventually scored against them at the Etihad. It must have been quite a strange experience.
Yeah, weird. I don't think many players get to experience that. Yeah, when the draw comes out, I mean, it was a few years, obviously, since being around it, and you have 3 big clubs, obviously, in their own right, and we knew it was going to be tough, but I think we took to it quite well. The tactics are spot on in most games, and sometimes when you play against certain teams like Barcelona, it's kind of impossible sometimes to stop you, no matter how hard you try. But it's just nice to experience it. And when we brought them back to our place, it was always going to be tough, and I think teams found it really, really, really tough to come against us, and that's what we wanted to make it like. And it's always been a force in European football throughout the years, and we kind of wanted to try and do that. See, it's hard these days with you know, with the finances in football and what people can obviously make in football now. So it's always players growing, and there's some unbelievable footballers out there. So it is can be tough, but you need to obviously make a fortress at home. And I thought we tried to do that, and we tried to make it tough. And in the end, obviously, it was a tough ask, but just the experience itself was amazing. And yeah, to score the Etihad was strange, but I enjoyed it. Enjoyed that one quite a bit, and yeah, it was nice, and it was a nice rule to let me play as well. I think that's quite nice.
Yeah, I mean the first game, the three each against Manchester City. I don't know what your recollections are of it, but for me that was 100% one of the noisiest I've heard Celtic Park prior to a match. Atmosphere was incredible on that occasion, and to go toe to toe with a Pep Guardiola side. I mean, I think Celtic's one of the only teams that Pep Guardiola hasn't defeated as a manager. Take us back to that day and what your memories are of it, and just the atmosphere in general at Celtic Park and Champions League nights.
Yeah, I remember that there because I went to see some of the players obviously after the game, and they couldn't believe it either. The Man City players, and I don't think it, I mean, I was the first taste of it, but it was phenomenal. I mean, I don't think they could believe what hit them really. And then we scored a set piece. I remember the set piece we worked on. We scored from that, and I think it kind of shocked them a little bit. And after that, it was just end to end stuff. And it was one of them nights you kind of look back and think, wow. And then ever since then, obviously that place has been rocking since in Europe, and that's what you got to make it. Like I said, you got to make it tough for opponents to come and not make it easy. And sometimes the quality outweighs that, but the fans always brought that, and they always brought that intenseness to the away fans and the away players, and that's what it needed to be done. And unfortunately, like I said, we didn't go over the line in that sense, but an experience in itself was amazing, and it's no better club to do it at, really.
I mean, we'd probably be here for hours, Patrick, if we were to go through all the big moments in that season, because there's just so many. I mean, the two 5-1 games, the cup finals, everything basically in that season was just incredible. From yourself as well, particularly towards the back end of that season, you were scoring tons of goals. Remember the game against Partick Thistle, where you scored a couple. But I just wanted to ask you what memories really stand out for you personally in that season, and as well as the collective.
The Champions League, definitely. The games, the biggest ones. But the cup final for me stood out quite a lot. Because Tom ran past me to score the goal. I was begging for him to pass me the ball, and he just kept going and scored. And I don't think I've celebrated that like that in a long time. It was when he ran off to celebrate, it was incredible. Couldn't believe it. It was the last game of the season, last kick of the ball, and things like that stick in your memory for a long time. And it was just to cap off a season, invincible and winning the treble was not many people forget, and celebrations afterwards. And we got on the bus, I think, and we drove all the way back to Celtic Park, and it was thousands of people. We couldn't go very far. We could only go to Hampden to Celtic Park, but the amount of people on the street was incredible. And we walked up to Celtic Way, and there was again 1,000 people there. Yeah, it was incredible. And them things you can't forget, and they stick with you for a long time.
What I wanted to ask was, because at the end to that season, you were starting to score lots of goals, and basically all the chat, I think, from February onwards was, are we going to keep this guy? Is Patrick Roberts going to stay at Celtic? And there was such a clamour for you. At what point did you kind of make a decision where you thought, this is a place I want to be next season? How much did the fans influence that? Or was it something that was just kind of dragging on all summer and you didn't really know what was going to be happening?
Yeah, well, the problem kind of got is I wasn't obviously at the time, I wasn't owned by. So for me, I wanted, that in my head. I spoke to obviously the manager, and I wanted to do that. But at the end of the day, sometimes it's not always what I want to do. So at the same time, I couldn't kind of do certain things, and it kind of just had to wait. And see, like I said, your pre-seasons are important. So the more I waited, kind of didn't help things, and the more it went on and went on and went on, it got right down to the end, and it kind of took a few months, but I knew where I wanted to be and I wanted to come back. And obviously, the second season wasn't as successful as the first one, but that was always my idea of wanting to come back, and I always wanted to play for Celtic. So kind of got that in the end, but maybe it was a little too late for obviously starting up again, and I got injured and stuff. But from that time, from when I finished, I kind of wanted to go back. And like I said, not much I can obviously say, but there's things in football you can't obviously do much about, and that's just one of them. And comes across maybe easy to some fans for things to happen, but it's not the same thing. And yeah, playing for Celtic was always a privilege and a pleasure, and they never turned it down, and never have turned it down. So or got that I've been given the opportunity to do so anyway. And yeah, going back the second time was great. Obviously, it didn't pan out the way it was, but like I said, it was a privilege to play for Celtic, and I enjoyed every minute that I put on a green shirt.
There was so much hype though that summer. I mean, take us into what it was like for you personally. Was your phone just constantly blowing up with messages from Celtic fans?
Yeah, well, yeah, social media and stuff. I also had a few friends there, and kind of like you can't really say too much. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, you keep your mouth shut and just getting on with your business. And I was in pre-season at the time. I think I was in many different places, and it just took a while to kind of get done and get over the line. So it was a bit frustrating at the same time, but at the same time you've got a job to do, and you got to be professional and do what you can where you are at the present moment. So that's all I was doing, and it's just nice to get it done in the end, and get back to business. But yeah, it was mayhem. It's always carnage in the off season, and the pre-season is mayhem, especially for players going out on loan or getting sold or whatever. It's not a nice place to be sometimes.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I know as you said, the second season for you personally maybe wasn't as strong as the season prior. Injuries didn't help that at all. But there were still some really big moments. You were still part of a double treble team, scored in the Champions League against Anderlecht. I remember your performance against Rangers in the derby at Ibrox, won 2-0, was incredible. So just talk us through some of the moments that stand out for you during that second season.
Just I think everything about it. I mean, going back to back, win the treble again, and just the way we kind of kicked on from the last season. And teams are trying to get stronger, but we was kind of even stronger ourselves. And you take that in stride, and you take them moments, and you don't look back really, and you kind of just enjoy every moment. I remember that Rangers game. I think I got the man of match that game, so I've still got the champagne somewhere. And yeah, they were just big moments that I lived for in them games. And just obviously annoyed by injury and stuff, but you can't take away the fact obviously achieving so much there, and to win as many trophies as I did for that club was it's amazing personally for myself. And yeah, something that lives by me until this day. And like I said, it's a privilege to play for, and enjoyed every minute of it. And you just got to look back and enjoy them things.
Yeah. In terms of some of the personalities in that changing room, of course, so much was made about your friendship with Kieran Tierney during the time. We also, he had his shirt during the Scottish Cup final on because he got taken to hospital. Just tell us a little bit about your relationship with Kieran, and some of the other players you were close with as well, and if you're still keeping in touch with them.
Yeah, I think it's just like I said, when he came in, he was he's only my age, so he's the same age. And when he came through, he's a homegrown player. I came in obviously from Man City, so it was different kind of journeys. But we sat next to each other in the change room, got on well, and I could see what he was like as a personality. He got my banter, and I got his, and we just made a great friendship off the pitch, and on the pitch as well. And we just enjoyed our company, and we just got on really well. And same with some of the other lads. It was a great group at the time. I used to live down below from near Beaton as well, who helped me a lot. He was obviously there a long time, and he was settled me in as well. And just everyone there, part of that club, was great with me. But a few lads, obviously Kieran here, and see Scott Brown, Scotty Sinclair, they're all great with me, and really made my time there enjoyable off the pitch as well as on the pitch. And that's what we ask for in any team, especially like the one I'm in now as well. You need good friends off the pitch as well as on the pitch, and you create that relationship so good that when you're on the pitch, it's like your friends and your brothers, and you fight for each other no matter what. And that's what we had at the time. And yeah, we're just a great group of lads that enjoyed playing football, enjoyed winning, and that's what we tried to do every week. And I thought we did that, and we excelled to be the best we could. And like I said, that comes from being good friends off the pitch and having a good relationship off the pitch.
And you still have links with the current Celtic team. Is it right that you went to school with Matt O'Reilly?
Yeah, yeah, we Matt was at Fulham, so I used to see him when I was younger. So yeah, he obviously played. He was in MK Dons, and I seen him go up there, and I thought, oh wow, I'm sure he'll enjoy it. And yeah, I see he's taken to him quite well as well. And he's a good player. I only knew him when I was really young, and I left obviously quite early, so I didn't get to see him kind of in the ranks at Fulham. But I was knew of him. I knew he was a good player, and it's good to see that he's doing really well up there, and he's enjoying his football and following kind of what I did, enjoying it and just playing without fear and having expectation and going to do some good stuff. So I'm glad you guys are enjoying that.
Yeah, another left-footed wizard that's come from Fulham up to Celtic. There must be something in the water down there, Patrick. Just to finish on, just to finish on, Patrick, what we always do when we have guests on is go through some quick-fire questions, just to find out a little bit more about yourself and your teammates from your time at Celtic, if that's okay. So just to start off with, who would you say was the funniest teammate during your time at the club?
Funniest? Oh, Lustig's up there, Lusto. He was he was a class clown, I think, at times. A lot of funny lads, but I think yeah, Lusto's up there. He was funny.
Anything stand out of what he'd done? Any memories?
Just every day was just laugh and banter, and I think the best thing about him is his laugh. So like he'd laugh at his own joke, and it'd just make it even funnier. So
who was the best technician in the team? Like the player you'd look at and just think, wow, like you can't believe what they can do with a ball. I'm sure people said that about you, but who would you say?
Tom. Tom was a real technician. Like I said, with the size of him, you don't really expect it, but when you see him on the ball and what he can do is, yeah, Tom Rodgick's up there. He's probably the best.
Yeah, good shout. What was your favourite goal that you scored during your time at Celtic?
Favourite goal? The one at Tynecastle?
Yeah.
Played striker that there.
Yeah, you loved scoring at Tynecastle and against Hearts. It was just that one team you always scored against.
I think it was to win the league as well, or something. So it's quite a big goal, and I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah. Do you have a favourite goal that you saw from someone else during your time at Celtic?
Favourite goal? It was like 100 that season, 200. Yeah. Nah.
Maybe something for like obviously maybe Rodgick's in the Scottish Cup.
Yeah, he scored a few bangers. So they all just come into one, really.
Yeah.
The number.
Tom Rodgick.
Anything Tom Rodgick, yeah, was a screamer.
What was the best game, would you say, that you played in during your time at Celtic? And that can be for atmosphere or for performance or just something that comes to mind.
Best game. The 5-1 win was a good game, and Lusto scored at the end.
Yeah.
Incredible game.
What were they like to play in, particularly during that time, the games at Ibrox? You had 8,000 odd Celtic fans behind the goal.
Yeah, that was the times when it was probably the best. That was a great day. Even Aberdeen away. We were like 4-0 up after 20 minutes. I remember that. Couldn't believe it. Like 4-0. And 25 minutes on the clock, and I don't think any of us could believe it was the scoreline. And it was like probably after that, just cruise control. So performance-wise, one of them games were just incredible.
Yeah. Two more. Best atmosphere you experienced during your time at Celtic?
Best atmosphere. Oh God. Obviously the big games, but even the last game of the season when the Tifo was out against Hearts. I think that was the first season.
Yeah, that's right. The end of the first season for the Lisbon Lions.
Yeah, I've got a picture of that. I think I've seen that somewhere. That was very good. Half the time you can't remember the atmosphere because it's always kind of the same every kind of game. They're always loud and proud, and so every game is more or less the same. But Hampden games, I thought Hampden games were good sometimes. The way they were loud. The first final was loud, and you could say any game, to be honest. Even the ones during the week, crazy.
Just as a kind of overarching question, how do you look back on your time at Celtic? What comes to mind with the fans and the club and the memories that stand out for you?
Like a second home, I'd say. If you could put two words to it. It's one of them clubs you play for and always stick by you forever. And from minute one, I loved my time there, and it just got better and better throughout the years. And there's, like you said, there's no place like it really. And always just a second home, and just heard it. Not much to describe it really. Just you just have a great time, and especially for me, it was just a wonderful time of my career. And I look back and, like I said, it's a privilege to play for them. And coming to now, you bring it to now the experiences now, and I'm loving my time here as well. So but my first professional kind of club and first proper real, first team men's football environment. Couldn't ask for anything better, and I loved it.
Brilliant, Patrick. Well, we really appreciate you taking out the time and sitting down with us at the Celtic View podcast to go back through it all. It's left some amazing memories during your 2.5 years here, and I'm sure the Celtic fans will all absolutely love hearing from you again and talking over through them. So thank you so much, and all the best for the rest of the season at Sunderland, and hopefully we'll get to see you one day back up at Celtic Park.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. Appreciate that. Have a good one.
Yeah, there we have it. That was Patrick Roberts. Good 2.5 years at the club. But you kind of mentioned there, Paul, his last year obviously didn't go as well as he would have hoped for after re-signing, the whole clamour that summer about getting back in. He was curtailed a bit by injuries, but on his day, I mean, what a player he was.
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes wonder if, like there's certain players, it's like a kind of case of what if, like if he'd stayed with us even longer, would that have been a better move for him rather than, it was difficult for him because he was going from club to club trying to find like a permanent place for his career. But when he was here, yeah, I mean, he excited, a lot of fans just with the way he played. Just quite, kind of an exciting winger, and seemed to embrace life at Celtic as well, which again was really good. That he obviously came at a good time, the way we were playing, and just seemed to fit in really well. And that cup final, the Invincible treble one, I think people always remember. Obviously Kieran Tierney getting poleaxed and having to go away to get some dental treatment and coming back, and Patrick Roberts having the stripping tribute for him before the bromance was reunited at the Hampden pitch. But no, he did really well for us when he was here.
And relating it back to derby matches, I remember during last summer 2017, I was definitely one of those that was just constantly checking to see when it was happening, is the deal going to happen. That first derby match of 2017-18, he'd just come back into the team and he was amazing at Ibrox to game he won 2-0. He set up both goals, although the first one for Roger was more of a kind of miss-hit shot. I think there's Zen falls to him. But in the second goal, the pass through to Lee Griffiths, I remember at times thinking, Roberts is going to be amazing for us this season because the way he's playing, and just unfortunate injuries. But as we look back on there, as we touched on, still so many amazing memories to look back on, and still so fondly remembered. So it's great to see him doing well now at Sunderland. The B team, Paul, keeping with the theme of derbies and derby victories, they had their very own special derby win on Sunday at Ibrox, 3-1, 2 goals from Quinn, 1 from Adam Brooks as well. Rangers were just at 8 men in that game. But what a victory for them. What a special experience for them to go there and win. And it's just, as they're getting right towards the end of their campaign, it just kind of tops off what's been a really incredible season for them in terms of those experiences that they're getting.
I thought the performance and the result, was great credit to everyone with the B team. When you think of going into the game, two of the players that would probably have started for the B team, Ben Summers and Rocco Vata, they were missing because they were, with the first team, and it was great to see Rocco coming on at the end of the game against Ross County. So that was two probably players that they would have picked. They're obviously going away, playing against with a crowd there that would have been, mostly supporting the home team. Still a very young team, and they went a goal behind, but still bounced back. Obviously Rangers had their goalkeeper sent off for handling the ball outside the box, so with the 10 men, we got the goal just before the break, and I think obviously we then took advantage of the fact we had the 10 men, we get the goals, and then I think that's when the frustration maybe for the home side boiled over. I think the first sending off was just a second yellow card, and then at that point they were down to 9 men. When it went to 8 men, it was just a really, a rush of blood to the head, a really bad tackle on Matthew Anderson that deserved a straight red. But I think it was a good learning experience for the Celtic players as well, because they had to remain, keep their own discipline as well, keep their own shape and keep focusing on what they were doing, because when all those things are happening, they could easily get knocked off their rhythm. But a great win for them, and I'm sure Steve McManus and Darren O'Dea would have been absolutely delighted with how the team performed.
I mean, it doesn't get much better to have that opportunity to they've played here at Celtic Park and won 5-2 against Rangers, winning there as well. It actually keeps, for Celtic in general this season, from the first team, the women's team and the B team, not one of them have lost in a derby match this season, so proud for them to keep that record going. But in terms of that development point of view, as you're talking about being able to keep your head in those situations, if they want to progress and play into the first team, they're going to have to go to Ibrox and learn how to win, and learn how to win in those occasions where things, we've seen it so often, you think of the game where we won 3-2 at Ibrox in 2018 where Simunovic gets sent off, learning how to deal with moments where red cards happen, where penalties happen, because these games can change just in an instance like that. So that's only going to do them the world of good.
Yeah, it's one of those games I'd imagine that they've been assessed. I mean, I suppose they've been assessed in every single game, but those are the big games and that atmosphere. How do they respond to that? And they are so close. I mean, they've still got a long way to go on their journey, but, given the fact that two of their teammates were in the first team squad at the weekend, Bosun Lawl's also made his first team debut, that they're not that far away. Some of them have been training regularly or intermittently with the first team as well. So they're ultimately looking to push on, and if they can perform in that stage and do well, then that's what maybe catches the attention of others, in the club. So, and also just the fact that, I'm sure, that team is just littered with Celtic fans. So to win a derby game as a Celtic player, must be, the best feeling.
Oh, I know, it would be incredible. You're so true though, because that just made me think of a point when you were mentioning about where they're getting assessed, because when we spoke to Callum McGregor for this most recent edition of The View, and we looked back in his Youth Cup finals and games in an early stage his career in the academy, and that's what he said. He said when you get to the cup finals at the youth games, but also when you get to those derby matches, those are the games that you are assessed, where people are going to look at you and say, okay, how are you going to handle this occasion? Because when you come into the first team environment, it's going to be that times 100, and they're proving that this season, the B team.
I mean, it must be the most difficult game for the young players, because they're trying to strike that balance, because you don't want to come into a game like that and be overawed, and then the game passes you by, and then that's when maybe people are thinking, can they cope with that atmosphere? On the other hand, you don't want to go the other extreme and get too caught up with the atmosphere to the point where you forget what you're supposed to be doing or forget the discipline of the team. So it's trying to strike that balance, which, say for young players, and particularly, when you look through the team, full of Celtic fans anyway, so it's a big game for them, it's a big game for their families. So it was a really impressive performance, really impressive result, and we mentioned earlier on the back of the game here when we won 5-2 as well. It was really good, and you can tell, when you've heard Darren or Stephen talking, we're really keen to keep pushing the team in these last few games to finish as strongly as we can. Again, that's part of the philosophy of being at this club, is to finish the season in your strongest possible form. So I just, that's probably the hardest game they've got in the remainder of the season, and they can come through it with flying colours.
Yeah, only a couple of games left for the B team in the Lowland League next week as well. Then in the semi-finals of the Glasgow Cup, so they might have an opportunity playing Partick Thistle at Lexington. They might have an opportunity for a final and to lift some silverware as well. So all bodes well for them in this last little part of the season for them. In terms of the women's team, Paul, they are on international duty this weekend. They had a 2-0 victory against Partick Thistle on the last weekend, on this Sunday. It's actually going to be really interesting for them when they come back. I'm sure we'll touch on it more next week on our podcast as they come back from their international break. But they've got 9 games left in the league, 8 games left in the league campaign. And when they do come back, they've got 3 tough games in that week. They've got Glasgow City away, Hearts away in the midweek, and then Glasgow City again in the Scottish Cup semi-final. So exciting.
Yeah, it's a pivotal time for them in terms of the season. They got that, great 1-1 draw, just the last gasp equaliser from Caitlin Hayes in the Derby game, and then followed that up with a 2-0 win against a much improved Partick Thistle side who've actually done well over the course of the season and getting into the top 6. Amy Gallagher got a goal, and I'm quite surprised actually that she's not been called up for the Scotland squad. I think it's a couple of friendly games they've got, and I always think those are the opportunities for the international manager to maybe have a look at some of the players that haven't been up with the squad before, because there'll be players in that squad that he knows exactly what they can do, and her form's been excellent. She's scored more goals than she ever has in her career, and has been a key figure for us. So I think she would have merited a call up to the Scotland setup,
particularly for Scotland, with the fact that it's not like they are preparing for a World Cup later on this year. They didn't qualify. Amy Gallagher's still only 23, 24, around that age. So you'd expect her to be a player that's only going to get better, to then improve, and then to go into the Scotland fold at some point, you would expect. So I'd completely agree with you about getting her in just now for Scotland to have a look at her, playing games at Hampden as well. And she's only got better and better, where she's come in from Hibs, where she did so well. And then she's also had to take on the mantle of Clarissa Larisey leaving in January. And the team are looking and saying, right, who's going to be the person to grab all the goals? And she's just taking that responsibility on and is thriving in it. So I'm sure she'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
But it's...
I mean, you never... It's not like you would look at the squad and say... You don't want to say, well, she should be in instead of such and such a player, because I think every player's there on merit. But she's certainly more experienced than some of the players in the squad. She's probably performed better consistently over the course of the season. So, as I say, I was surprised that when the squad was announced, obviously there's no Celtic players. Kelly Clark's not been called into the squad this time, but she would have been the Scottish player for me that's playing with us that I think it would, certainly from an international point of view, would have been worth having her with the squad to see what she's like in and around the rest of the team.
Yeah, we'll have more of a focus on the women's team next week when they are returning, and got that game against Glasgow City to look forward to in that weekend, which is going to be a huge, crucial game in the race for the title. But for now, Paul, that's everything. The predictions, we're going to sit them out online because I had a computer malfunction this morning, which I'm still trying to battle, so hopefully that's fixed by the time I get out there.
And you should caveat that by saying that actually it's not because you did badly in the predictions, you actually did better than normal. So.
I did, yeah. I predicted a 2-0 result for the Celtic first team in the Sunday, and got a couple other results along the way as well. So yeah, I can hold my head up high this week. Hope I can do the same next week. But yes, an exciting weekend for everyone involved at Celtic, and hopefully this time next week we have got plenty of goals to look back on for us.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed indeed. But for now, thank you very much for listening. You know where to get us in all our podcast channels, and Spotify and on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube as well. So make sure you like and subscribe and follow us on the Celtic View at Celtic View on Twitter. But for now, enjoy your weekend. Hopefully your team wins, and we'll see you again next week. Farewell.